Under the harsh fluorescent lights of Pinnacle Studios, Maya Chen gripped her cello case tighter. Nobody expected much from the quiet new hire in audio engineering, certainly not that she possessed the talent to save their most important project. But talent has a way of hiding in plain sight, and Maya's moment was about to arrive, whether she was ready or not. Before we dive into the story, comment below where in the world you're watching from. The Pinnacle Studios elevator smelled of expensive cologne and ambition. Maya Chen pressed herself into the corner, clutching her worn leather messenger bag against her navy cardigan. At 26, with her round glasses and perpetually messy ponytail, she'd mastered the art of invisibility. Fourth floor, right? A man in a tailored charcoal suit smiled at her. Yes, audio engineering. Her voice came out softer than intended. His eyebrows lifted. Huh? Wouldn't have pegged you for tech. There it was again. That flicker of surprise she'd encountered throughout her career. Maya offered a practiced smile as the doors opened, revealing Pinnacle's gleaming hallways. Today marked her second week as an assistant audio engineer at Los Angeles' most prestigious recording studio. The building itself intimidated her, all sharp angles and glass, housing 16 platinum-selling artists this month alone. She hurried past the wall of fame toward her workstation, nodding at colleagues whose names she was still memorizing. Her true comfort zone waited at the end of the hall. Studio C, the smallest recording space, where she'd been assigned to assist with commercial jingles and podcast editing. Chen, Harrison Wells, the studio's technical director, appeared suddenly beside her desk. Need you to take notes in Studio A, the midnight hour session. Maya nearly dropped her coffee. Studio A? But that's Crawford's project, yes. Harrison checked his watch. He's in a mood today, just stay quiet, take detailed notes and try not to spill anything. Studio A was Pinnacle's crown jewel, reserved for the biggest artists and most demanding producers. And James Crawford was legendary, having produced 8 Grammy-winning albums in the past decade. Maya's pulse quickened as she grabbed her tablet and notepad. She'd studied Crawford's mixing techniques in school, written papers about his revolutionary approach to spatial audio. Now she'd be in the same room watching him work with the Midnight Hour, the indie rock sensation whose debut album had gone double platinum. She slipped into Studio A as unobtrusively as possible. The space was massive compared to her usual environment, state-of-the-art. Equipment surrounded a central recording area where 4 musicians were setting up. Who's this? Crawford didn't look up from the mixing console, his fingers dancing across sliders. Maya Chen from Audio Engineering, she said, trying to sound professional despite her nerves. Mr. Wells sent me to take notes. Crawford glanced up briefly, then returned to his work. Fine, stay back. For the next 2 hours, Maya observed in silent fascination. She noted every setting, every adjustment, filled pages with observations about microphone placement and EQ decisions. When the band took a break, she reviewed her notes, adding small diagrams in the margins. What have you got there? Crawford suddenly loomed over her shoulder. Just notes, sir. She angled the pad toward him. I was particularly interested in your approach to the drum overhead placement and the phase cancellation solution you... Jesus, these are incomprehensible. He frowned at her detailed technical drawings. Wells sent me someone who can't even take proper notes. Heat rushed to Maya's face. I can clarify any... Don't bother, just... Get me coffee, black, and find someone to bring real notes tomorrow, as E. She hurried to the break room. Maya fought back tears of humiliation. She knew her notes were good, excellent even. They contained insights she'd recognize in Crawford's trademark sound from studying his work for years. Rough session? A gentle voice interrupted her thoughts. An older man with silver-streaked hair was refilling his mug at the coffee station. His ID badge read, Alan Mercer, Head Engineer. Mr. Crawford didn't appreciate my note-taking style. Maya poured Crawford's coffee, willing her hands not to shake. Alan glanced at her open notebook. These are Crawford's EQ settings for the midnight hour? Maya nodded miserably. These are remarkably detailed. He studied the page more closely. You've even noted the specific frequency adjustments on the vocal chain. I've studied his work for years, Maya admitted. I recognize his patterns. Alan looked at her with newfound interest. "You're new here, yes? Where'd you train?" "Berkeley. But I've been doing audio work since high school, really." "Berkeley," Alan repeated. "Yet you're running coffee." Maya shrugged slightly. "Everyone starts somewhere." After delivering Crawford's coffee, she returned to her regular duties, pushing the morning's humiliation aside. This was how the industry worked, paying dues, staying invisible until you'd earned the right to be seen. She'd known that coming. 2 days later, disaster-struck Studio B Maya was editing a commercial voiceover when alarms began blaring throughout the building. She rushed into the hallway to find chaos. Engineers running, doors slamming, and Harrison Wells shouting into his phone. "What's happening?" she asked a passing technician. "Water pipe burst over Studio B, right in the middle of the Aiko session. Everything's soaked." Maya's stomach dropped. Aiko was Pinnacle's biggest client. A Japanese-American pop superstar in the middle of recording her third album. She followed the commotion to Studio B, where water was being mopped from expensive equipment. Aiko herself stood in the center, surrounded by executives attempting damage control. 3 weeks of work, James Crawford was saying, his face ashen. The backup drive was in the control room. "It's fried." "We have the rough mixes," someone offered. "The rough mixes don't have the string arrangements we just recorded. The quartet flew back to New York yesterday." Maya surveyed the scene, noting the sodden sheet music and ruined equipment. The string section had been the album's centerpiece, a 20-piece arrangement that had taken months to compose. "We need those strings," Aiko said quietly. "The album release is scheduled, we can't postpone." Harrison ran a hand through his thinning hair. "We'll call every string player in LA, re-record immediately." "With what score?" Crawford snapped. "The composers in Europe and the digital files were on that drive." The room fell silent, except for the squish of wet carpet under expensive shoes. Maya cleared her throat. "I have the arrangement." All heads turned toward her. "Excuse me?" Crawford's tone was dismissive. "I was in Studio C when the quartet recorded. The wall is thin. I could hear everything." Maya's voice grew steadier. "I notated the arrangement while I worked." "You wrote down an entire string quartet arrangement by ear? While doing other work?" Harrison's disbelief was palpable. Maya nodded. "I have perfect pitch. It's just something I've always been able to do." "Where are these alleged notes?" Crawford demanded. "My apartment. I can get them in 30 minutes. Crawford exchanged glances with Harrison. "This is ridiculous. We can't base a professional recording on some amateur's scribblings." Aiko stepped forward. "Let's hear what she has." An hour later, Maya stood trembling in Studio A, her notebook open on the music stand. 4 hastily assembled string players waited, instruments ready, while the entire executive team of Pinnacle watched from the control room. "This is absurd," Crawford muttered into the talkback mic. "We're wasting valuable time." Maya took a deep breath and gave the quartet their cues. At her nod, they began to play. The opening notes hesitated, then strengthened as the players followed her unexpectedly precise notation. Within moments, the familiar melody took shape, exactly as it had been recorded days before. Maya conducted, subtly mouthing dynamics where they weren't clear on the page. Through the glass, she saw Crawford's expression shift from skepticism to shock. Beside him, Aiko leaned forward, eyes closed, nodding in recognition. When the quartet finished the first movement, silence hung in the air. "That's it," Aiko said finally. "That's exactly it." "But how?" Crawford began. "Second movement?" Maya asked the quartet, turning the page. They played for another hour, recreating the entire arrangement note for note. When they finished, the control room erupted in applause. "We need to record this immediately," Harrison said. "Same microphone setup as before." As engineers scrambled to position equipment, Maya found herself face to face with Crawford. "Where did you learn to do that?" he demanded. "I've been transcribing music since I was 7. She met his gaze steadily. "My mother was a violinist with the San Francisco Symphony. I grew up backstage." "Why didn't you say anything?" "No one asked." 3 days later, Maya was called to the executive floor, a rarefied space she'd never visited. Alan Mercer met her at the elevator. "Everyone's talking about you," he said. guiding her down a hallway lined with platinum records. Saving the ICO project made quite an impression. Maya adjusted her glasses nervously. I was just in the right place at the right time, with the right skills. Alan stopped outside a conference room. Which is why we're here. Inside, Harrison, Crawford, and several people she didn't recognize sat around a gleaming table. At the center stood a cello. There she is. Harrison stood. Maya, meet Gerald Winters from Symphony Studios. An older gentleman nodded at her. Ms. Chen. Maya recognized the name instantly. Symphony was Pinnacle's chief rival, known for their orchestral recordings and film scores. We have a situation, Harrison explained. Symphony is recording the score for Horizons next week. The new Spielberg film, Maya breathed. Yes, their cellist has broken her wrist. Gerald called me in desperation. I don't understand, Maya said. What does this have to do with me? Crawford cleared his throat. After your performance with the ICO project, Alan mentioned your background. Your mother was Li-Ming Chen, yes? Maya nodded, surprised he'd researched her. Yes, one of the finest violinists of her generation, Gerald said. And according to Alan, her daughter is equally talented. I studied cello seriously, but that was years ago, Maya protested. I chose audio engineering instead. Yet you maintained enough skill to graduate from Berkeley with dual degrees in performance and engineering, Crawford countered. Your transcript was impressive. Maya felt trapped. I'm not a professional cellist. Play something, Gerald gestured to the instrument. Please. The room watched expectantly. Maya approached the cello, her heart racing. It was a beautiful instrument, far nicer than the one she kept in her apartment, played only late at night. When loneliness crept in, she sat, adjusted the end pin and positioned the cello between her knees. The familiar posture brought a rush of memory, her mother's gentle corrections, competition nerves, countless hours of practice. Without sheet, music, she chose the prelude from Bach's first cello suite, the piece that had once been as natural to her as breathing. Her bow hovered for a moment, then connected with the strings. The first notes were hesitant, rusty from disuse. But muscle memory took over, and soon the melody flowed through the room, rich, resonant, alive. Maya closed her eyes, surrendering to the music she'd once abandoned. When she finished, she opened her eyes to stunned silence. That was... Gerald seemed at a loss for words. Incredible, Crawford finished. And you've been making coffee in my studio. We need you for this recording, Gerald said. The symphony orchestra has 3 rehearsals before the session. Can you do it? Maya stared at the cello in her hands. For years, she'd convinced herself that engineering was safer, more practical than performance. She'd buried her talent, become invisible by choice. I'm not sure I'm ready, she admitted. That performance suggests otherwise, Harrison said. This would be a significant opportunity for both you and Pinnacle. And afterward, Maya asked, I go back to Studio C? The executives exchanged glances. Actually, Alan said, we'd like to discuss a new position, associate producer specializing in orchestral recordings, using both your technical and musical expertise. Maya's world tilted. You're offering me a promotion because I played Bach? Because you're extraordinarily talented in multiple areas, Crawford said, and because I was wrong about you. Talent deserves recognition, regardless of where it comes from. Maya looked around the table at the faces watching her, faces that had barely noticed her existence a week ago. Now they waited for her decision with undisguised eagerness. When's the first rehearsal? She asked finally. Tomorrow morning, Gerald replied. The orchestra has already been sent the score. Maya thought of her apartment, the cello gathering, dust in the corner while she worked late nights, trying to prove herself in the engineering room. She thought of her mother, who had always insisted her daughter's talent was too precious to abandon. I'll need the score tonight, she said. And I'll need studio time to practice, Crawford nodded. Studio A is yours until midnight. 6 months later, Maya stood backstage at the Hollywood Bowl, adjusting her concert black dress. Through the curtain, she could hear the murmur of the audience gathering for the premiere of Horizons. Alan appeared beside her. Nervous? Terrified, she admitted. I never expected to perform with the symphony orchestra. Yet here you are, he smiled. Front row, featured soloist. The film score had been a beginning, not an end. Maya's performance had caught the attention of the conductor, leading to an invitation to perform the cello solo for tonight's live-to-picture concert. Meanwhile, her new position at Pinnacle had blossomed. She now headed a department specializing in orchestral recordings, bringing a performer's sensibility to the technical side. Chen, Crawford approached, looking uncharacteristically formal in a tuxedo. Just wanted to wish you luck before I take my seat. Thank you, James. Using his first name still felt strange. I appreciate you coming. Wouldn't miss it. Your work on the Kyoto Quartet album is bringing in clients we've never had before. He hesitated. I owe you an apology, you know, for how I treated you initially. Maya shook her head. You couldn't have known. That's just it. I should have looked. Real talent doesn't always announce itself. He offered his hand. Break a leg out there. As he walked away, Maya turned to her cello, no longer a secret companion, but a public extension of herself. The journey from the back of Studio C to the Hollywood Bowl stage had been swift and unexpected. The stage manager appeared. 5 minutes, Ms. Chen. Maya nodded, running through the solo in her mind. The audience tonight would include industry executives, critics, and musicians who had never known she existed half a year ago. She thought of all the quiet, overlooked people with hidden talents, waiting in studios, offices, and practice rooms for their moment to be discovered. How many others like her were out there, their gifts dormant until circumstance forced them into light? The curtain began to rise. Maya took her place, lifted her bow, and prepared to be seen. In a world quick to judge by appearance and first impressions, true talent often hides in unexpected places. Sometimes it takes a broken pipe, a moment of crisis, or a single chance to reveal what has always been there, waiting patiently to shine.